Silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence that precedes something sacred. Imagine that, for a moment, all the noise in the world dissolves. Traffic halts. Thoughts grow quiet. The mind's restlessness bows before something greater. And then you breathe. The air flows in, and you exist. But tell me sincerely, are you aware that you're breathing right now? Most of us live as if breathing were just background noise, an automatic biological function, like a heartbeat or digestion. But what if I told you that, right there, in that invisible act, lies one of the greatest mysteries of existence? Breathing is the only physiological process that happens both automatically and voluntarily. You don't have to think in order to breathe. But when you do think about it, everything changes. When you bring awareness to the act of breathing, it's as if a new door opens, a door between worlds, between body and spirit, between the tangible and the subtle, between the now and the eternal. That door has always been there, discreet, humble, available. It demands no belief, no dogma, only presence. And perhaps that's what makes it even more powerful. There's something deeply symbolic about breathing. It is the first act we perform at birth, and the last at death. We don't begin life with a cry, as people often say. We begin with an inhale. And we don't end it with goodbye, we end it with an exhale. Between those two extremes, what we do is breathe. To live, therefore, is to breathe. But to live consciously is another story. Throughout history, countless spiritual, philosophical, and scientific traditions have explored this theme with reverence. For mystics, air is sacred. For scientists, it is vital. For seekers, it is a bridge between the visible and the invisible. In this script, we will explore breathing like perhaps you never have before. Not just as a movement of the lungs, but as an interface, a point of contact between seemingly separate worlds. We will look at it through the eyes of biology, but also through the eyes of the soul. The thesis that guides this journey is simple, yet profound. Breathing is not just biology. It is a language between the visible and the invisible. And like every language, it has codes, rhythms, pauses, hidden meanings, and above all, it holds the power to communicate with the body, to communicate with the spirit, to communicate with the present moment itself. When you inhale, you bring the world into yourself. When you exhale, you give yourself to the world. This back and forth, this constant cycle, is more than physiology. It is a sacred ritual we perform thousands of times a day, most of the time without even noticing. But when we do notice, everything changes. This is an invitation to attention, to listening, to a reconnection with something essential. In the next sections, we'll travel through the structures of the body and the fields of the spirit. We'll understand how oxygen nourishes our cells, but also how air can nourish our consciousness. We'll explore the hidden power in the pauses, in ancient techniques, and in the latest scientific insights. But before any of that, I ask just one thing. Breathe. But this time, be present. Feel the air touch your nostrils. Notice how it travels down to your lungs. Sense the tiny space between the inhale and the exhale. There, in that silent interval, perhaps something greater is waiting for you. A reunion, a beginning, or perhaps a memory of what you've always been. Breathing may seem simple at first glance. Air goes in, air goes out. But behind this everyday gesture lies one of the most sophisticated mechanisms in human biology. By understanding its physical dimension, we not only come closer to our bodies, We also discover how this bridge between body and spirit is sustained by mechanisms of almost miraculous precision. Every cell in our body needs oxygen. Without it, there is no energy, no movement, no life. When we inhale, we carry oxygen into the pulmonary alveoli, tiny air sacs that exchange gases with the blood. From there, the oxygen travels through the arteries, nourishing trillions of cells and helping them perform vital functions such as the production of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the main source of cellular energy. At the same time, we exhale carbon dioxide, a byproduct of metabolism. This exchange between oxygen and CO2 keeps our blood pH stable, an essential condition for homeostasis, the internal balance that ensures the proper functioning of all body systems. Breathing, then, is a constant process of self-preservation. But it doesn't stop there. Breathing communicates directly with the autonomic nervous system, which regulates automatic functions like heartbeat, digestion, and sleep. When we breathe in a shallow and rapid way, we activate the sympathetic nervous system, responsible for fight or flight responses. On the other hand, slow and deep breathing stimulates the parasympathetic system, which leads us into relaxation, healing, and rest. In other words, the way we breathe tells the body whether we are in danger or safe. One of the key players in this process is the vagus nerve, the longest of the cranial nerves. It connects the brain to several internal organs, including the heart, lungs, and gut, and it is deeply sensitive to respiratory rhythm. When we breathe slowly, especially with prolonged exhalation, the vagus nerve is activated. This induces a cascade of calming effects: reduction of cortisol, the stress hormone, stabilization of blood pressure, increase in heart rate variability, HRV, a key indicator of emotional resilience and physical health. This state is known as cardiorespiratory coherence, when the breath, heart, and brain enter into a harmonious rhythm. It's as if the body begins to play a soft melody, in sync with well-being. Science shows that people who train their breathing to reach this state exhibit better cognitive performance, greater emotional balance, and even increased longevity. The way we breathe also shapes our mental and emotional state. This happens through the regulation of the brain's neurochemistry. Serotonin, associated with feelings of well-being. Conscious breathing stimulates its release. GABA, an inhibitory neurotransmitter that reduces anxiety and calms thought patterns. Deep breathing increases its levels. Endorphins, natural painkillers that bring pleasure and reduce physical discomfort. Dopamine, linked to motivation and pleasure. Specific breathing techniques can activate it. These substances are commonly influenced by medication, but conscious breathing is a natural key to activating them, without side effects, without dependencies, and at no cost. It's as if we carried an internal laboratory within us, and breathing were the switch that regulates the chemistry of happiness, presence, and peace. Breathing can also open portals to expanded mental states, often associated with mystical experiences, deep insights, or intense emotional reorganizations. These practices have been used for centuries, and today they are the subject of scientific study. 3 of the most well-known approaches. Holotropic breathwork, developed by Stanislav Grof. This method uses intense and continuous breathing to access the subconscious. Reported experiences include repressed memories, states of ecstasy, and even transpersonal phenomena. Wim Hof method, created by Wim Hof. This method combines rhythmic breathing with cold exposure and meditation. It has shown benefits such as improved immunity, pain tolerance, and control over physiological processes once thought to be involuntary. Rebirthing, a technique focused on unlocking traumas linked to birth and early childhood through deep breathing cycles. Neuroimaging studies show that these techniques affect areas of the brain related to introspection, self-perception, and deep emotion, such as the prefrontal cortex, the insula, and the amygdala. It's no exaggeration to say that breathing is a technology of consciousness access. It allows us to explore more subtle layers of the psyche, release trauma stored in the body, and awaken states of presence that transcend rational thought. If biology is the structure that supports us, consciousness is the light that guides us. Breath is what lies between them, stitching together matter and perception, the nervous system and the soul, the cell and the silence. And this is just the beginning. If the body breathes to live, the spirit seems to breathe to remember who it is. Up to this point, we've explored breathing as a biological, neurochemical, and functional phenomenon. But what about the subjective experience? The intuition we feel in moments of deep silence, contemplation, or prayer, when everything around us dissolves and all that remains is air flowing in and out? Breath is also a spiritual language, a bridge between the visible and the invisible, not only in the body, but in consciousness. Long before science measured oxygen or studied the lungs, ancient peoples already revered the act of breathing as something sacred. Ruach, Hebrew spirit, breath, wind. In the Old Testament, it is the Ruach of God that gives life to man. Prana, Sanskrit vital energy present in the air and in all things. In yoga, breathing, pranayama, is a way to channel and expand that energy. Qi, or Qi, Chinese life force that circulates through the body's meridians, central to traditional Chinese medicine. Ka, Egyptian, the vital spark that connects the body to the spiritual world. All of these words suggest that breathing goes far beyond oxygen. It is divine presence in motion. When you breathe, you're not only feeding the body, you are receiving the breath of creation, that which makes us alive and conscious. In virtually every meditative tradition, the breath lies at the heart of the practice. And there is a reason for this. To observe the breath, without judging it, without changing it, simply with attention, has an almost magical effect. It silences the ego. The mind, so used to racing between past and future, becomes disarmed in the face of the simplicity of the present. Breath is always now. Neuroimaging of experienced meditators shows that this focus on the breath activates brain regions such as the medial prefrontal cortex, linked to self-regulation, and reduces activity in the default mode network, the area responsible for internal narrative and the constant mental chatter. This explains why, after just a few minutes of mindful breathing, it's common to feel more clarity, more lightness, and paradoxically, more depth. Breath doesn't only take us inward, it also lifts us upward. There is a space, a pause between the inhale and the exhale. A moment so brief, so subtle, it often goes unnoticed. But within it, something special exists. This space is what many mystics call the gap between worlds. It is the place where thought ceases, where the mind bows before the mystery, where there is no need to do, only to be. It's as if the soul uses that small pause to whisper something that cannot be spoken in words. A memory, a touch, a gentle vibration that escapes logic. When you begin to notice this space between breaths, you discover that you are not alone. Something watches you, guides you, lives within you. And that something is you, your deepest self. Perhaps you've never prayed, or perhaps you pray every day. Maybe you have a religious faith. Or maybe your spirituality is free, without name or temple. It doesn't matter, because breath is a prayer we all say, even without knowing it. It is the most intimate dialogue with life, and with whatever exists beyond it. To inhale is to receive. To exhale is to surrender. And between those two gestures, there lives trust. The trust that you don't have to control everything. That there is a greater intelligence, whether you call it God, the universe, consciousness, that sustains the flow. When we breathe with presence, we stop asking, and we begin to listen. The body speaks, the soul speaks, silence responds. And the most incredible part is that this practice requires nothing beyond what you already have. Your own body, your willingness to be here. You don't need dogmas, mantras, or candles. Just a moment of inner listening. Just breathe and ask yourself, who is breathing in me? This question may seem simple, but it carries the power of 1,000 sacred texts. Breathing is not just what keeps you alive. It is what reminds you that you are alive. And more than that there is something within you that has never ceased to be eternal. We are faced with a unique phenomenon. Breathing is the only physiological process that can be both automatic and voluntary. We can breathe without thinking, and at the same time, we can consciously intervene in the act. This detail, seemingly simple, reveals something immense. Breath is the interface between body and consciousness, between what is under our control and what is not, between instinct and intention, between the biological and the spiritual. It is the only tool that allows us to touch the machine with the spirit. Most of our physiological systems work automatically. The heart beats, the liver filters, the kidneys eliminate toxins. We don't need, and we can't, control these processes consciously. But breath, for some mysterious reason, can be taken over by will. You can speed it up, slow it down, hold it, release it. You can turn it into a rhythm, a ritual, a presence. This characteristic makes breathing a bridge between regions of the brain. The reptilian brain, responsible for survival and automatic processes. The limbic system, which governs emotions and reactions. The neocortex, the seat of language, abstract thinking, and full awareness. When we breathe consciously, we are doing something rare, creating dialogue between these layers. It's as if we unite instinct, emotion, and reason in a single flow. As if body and mind are finally shaking hands. In the age of technology, everything seems to depend on interfaces, screens, keyboards, voice commands. But there's a technology that predates all of these, and it lives inside us. Breath is, in this sense, the keyboard of the subtle body. It is through breath that we type commands into the invisible interface of consciousness. Do you want to calm down? Breathe more slowly. Do you want to awaken focus? Breathe more deeply. Do you want to access states of intuition or transcendence? Try specific breathing patterns like holotropic or rhythmic breath work. This technology doesn't rely on devices or external networks. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's no exaggeration to say that breath is the soul's Wi-Fi, the invisible channel that connects us to something greater, something that can't be explained, only felt. And what's even more fascinating is that the more you use this inner technology, the more sensitive you become to your own energetic field. You begin to notice subtle shifts in your presence, emotions, and perception of time. Breath, when conscious, aligns the body, sharpens the mind, and opens the spirit. There is a dance between body and mind, between the physical and the subtle, and breath is the rhythm of that dance. Studies show that breathing frequency directly affects brainwave activity. For example, breathing at a rhythm of 6 cycles per minute, inhaling for 5 seconds, exhaling for 5 seconds, induces alpha brainwaves associated with calm, creativity, and presence. Deeper, slower breathing can lead to theta waves, linked to meditation, intuition, and even lucid dreaming. In intense practices involving breath retention and controlled hyperventilation, like the Wim Hof method or holotropic breathwork, it's possible to access delta waves and experience altered states of perception without using any external substances. In other words, the way you breathe transforms the way you perceive reality. This means that by changing your breath, you're not just influencing your body, you're stepping into another room of your consciousness. You're tuning the frequency of your inner antenna. In spiritual practice, this is essential. Elevated states of presence aren't random mystical miracles. They are specific physiological states, trainable, cultivable, accessible. And the entry key is your breath. The interface, then, is not just a poetic metaphor. It's literal. Breath is the navigation tool between worlds. With it, you calm the body, access the spirit, and anchor yourself in the now. You don't have to choose between science and soul. Breath unites the two. And by using it consciously, you discover a powerful secret. You are the link between heaven and earth. And that link moves with your breath. As deep and symbolic as it may be, breathing remains accessible. It is a simple wisdom the body already knows, but the mind needs to relearn. Now that we've explored both the physical and spiritual aspects of breathing, it's time to bring it into practice, into daily life, into the real world, with its challenges, anxieties, sleepless nights, and endless thoughts. Because the true power of conscious breathing doesn't lie only in knowing. It lies in using, in embodying, in living it every day. Here are 3 simple, effective, and scientifically studied breathing practices. They require nothing more than a present body and a few minutes of attention. For 7-8 breathing, Dr. Andrew Weil. Ideal for anxiety and insomnia. Inhale through the nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 7 seconds. Exhale through the mouth for 8 seconds, emptying the lungs completely. Repeat 3 to 5 times. This pattern calms the nervous system, reduces sympathetic, fight or flight activity, and induces deep relaxation. Alternate nostril breathing, Nadi Shodhana. An ancient yoga practice that balances both hemispheres of the brain. Close the right nostril with your thumb and inhale through the left. Close the left nostril with your ring finger and exhale through the right. Inhale through the right nostril, close it, and exhale through the left. Repeat this cycle for 5 to 10 minutes. This technique is ideal for mental clarity, emotional balance, and present moment awareness. Heart coherence breathing, heart-focused breathing, HeartMath Institute. Aligns heart and brain. Focus your attention on the center of your chest, as if breathing through the heart. Inhale for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds. At the same time, evoke a positive emotion, gratitude, love, calm. Practice for 3 to 10 minutes. This method increases heart rate variability, HRV, enhances emotional resilience, and improves mental clarity. These 3 practices are entry points. Simple, yes, but powerful. They can transform your morning, your night, your mood, and over time, your life. Breathing doesn't need to be a long or formal ritual. It can be adapted to real-life situations, functional and practical. Here are a few everyday examples. Before sleep, use the 4-7-8 technique. It helps release melatonin and quiet a hyperactive mind. Perfect for those who struggle with insomnia or racing thoughts at night. In moments of anxiety or fear, practice heart coherence for 3 minutes. Focus on the chest, breathe slowly, and recall a positive memory. This activates the parasympathetic system and slows the body down. For focus and mental clarity, before a meeting, exam, or creative task, use alternate nostril breathing, Nadi Shodhana, for 5 minutes. It balances the brain and enhances cognitive performance. The key is to observe your internal state and use breath as a regulatory tool. You begin to become the author of your frequency. Not everyone has the time or willingness to sit for 20 minutes a day to meditate, but everyone breathes all day long, which means everyone has the opportunity to practice, even without stopping. Here are some ways to integrate conscious breathing into your day without needing to make time. In the shower, close your eyes for a few seconds and feel the warm air entering and leaving your body. In traffic or waiting in lines, turn boredom into presence. Inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 6. While walking, sync your steps with your breath. 2 steps to inhale, 2 or 3 to exhale. Before meals, take 3 slow, deep breaths. This activates digestion and slows the mental rhythm. Upon waking, breathe deeply before picking up your phone. Just 1 minute can reset your day. The idea isn't to add another task to your to-do list. It's to remember that you can be present anywhere if you choose to breathe with intention. One powerful and often forgotten practice is the breath journal. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Just a sheet of paper or a note-taking app. What to observe? How do you breathe at different times of the day? What emotions accompany your breath? What changes when you breathe consciously? Are there repeating patterns in your internal states? Over time, you begin to notice subtle connections. Maybe you realize that in moments of fear, you hold your breath, or that during creative inspiration, your breathing pattern changes, or that certain places or people affect your breath. This journal is a way to develop an intimate relationship with your own body, to realize that your internal rhythm is speaking loudly. You just need to learn how to listen. Conscious breathing is not an esoteric practice reserved for monks. It is direct access to your inner sovereignty. A reminder that even in chaos, you can anchor yourself. Even in pain, you can release. Even in fear, you can choose to breathe. We often lose ourselves from the body, from the earth, from ourselves. But breath remains. It doesn't leave. It doesn't abandon us. It is there, even when we are no longer present in ourselves. To breathe consciously is to remember, to return to where we came from, to the body that inhabits the now, to the soul that longs to be heard, to the planet that sustains us. Breath is an act of reconnection. We live in times of emotional disembodiment, not in the physical sense, but in the symbolic one. Many people exist only from the skin outward. The body has become a machine to be adjusted, tamed, sculpted, or else ignored. But the body doesn't forget. The body feels. And when it's not heard, it cries out. In chronic pain, in muscular tension, in psychosomatic illnesses. To disconnect from the breath is to disconnect from the body itself. It means no longer perceiving the signs, the limits, the inner calls. Conscious breathing is the first step to re-enter, to be inside your skin, with presence, with care, to make the body a temple, not a prison. When you breathe with awareness, the body is no longer a stranger. It becomes an ally, a home, a mirror. With every inhale, you draw in air released by the trees. With every exhale, you return what they need, carbon dioxide. This exchange is invisible, yet real. It is a silent dialogue with the earth. You and the plants together sustain life's balance. You and the oceans, with their phytoplankton, uphold the planet's respiratory cycle. Breath reminds us that we are not separate from the natural world. We are part of it. In modern times, it's easy to forget that. But nature pulses within us. And breathing is the most intimate act of that union. To breathe consciously is an ecological gesture. It is to remember that every breath is a contract with the planet. It is to say, I accept being here, in this dance with the earth. Finally, there is an even more subtle reconnection, and perhaps the most important of all. Breath reconnects us with spirit, not with some external, distant, unreachable spirit, but with our inner spirit, with the part of us that watches in silence, that does not panic, that simply is. Often, we search for meaning out there, in beliefs, gurus, books, retreats. But sometimes, what we need most is a single moment of stillness, a slow breath, a reunion with the fertile emptiness of now. In that space, something aligns, something settles, and we feel, without needing words, that everything is okay. Not because everything outside has resolved, but because something inside has come home. Breath does not heal everything, but it opens the door for healing to begin. It doesn't answer every question, but it creates the silence where answers can emerge. It doesn't change the world out there, but it changes the world in here. And sometimes that's exactly what the world needs. Someone who is whole within, present, alive, connected. Close your eyes just for a moment, not to escape the world, but to feel what is still here, even when everything feels uncertain, noisy, or distant. Feel the air comes in, the air goes out. You are alive. Yes, you're here. Throughout this journey, we've explored the two worlds that meet in the act of breathing, the physical and the invisible. We saw how science describes breath with precision, its effects on the nervous system, brain chemistry, and cellular function. And we also saw how spiritual traditions, both ancient and contemporary, revere it as a channel of communion with something greater. But now, as we reach the end, one question echoes more strongly. What if breath is the meeting point between who we are and who we've forgotten to be? Breath is not just biology. It is language, instrument, bridge, prayer. It is a gentle reminder that we are not disconnected from life, only distracted. And when we bring presence to the simple act of breathing, life responds. Not with easy answers, but with a quiet clarity, a vibration of belonging, a deep feeling of, I am here. We spoke of the body, of oxygenation, the vagus nerve, heart coherence, and brain waves. We spoke of the spirit, of prana, of ruach, of the silence between inhale and exhale, of the soul revealed in that space. We spoke of practice, of simple and effective techniques, of how to integrate breath into daily life, of how it can mirror our emotions. We spoke of reconnection, with the body, with the planet, with what is most essential within us. And in each of these layers, we discovered the same central point. The power is in the breath. You don't need to isolate yourself in a monastery to awaken. You don't need to have absolute answers about life, the universe, or the soul. You only need something you already have and always have had: your breath. With it, you can weather storms. With it, you can calm, heal, and reconnect. With it, you can remember what is sacred, even in the simplest things. To breathe with presence is an act of courage, an act of love, an act of return. Between birth and death, there is breath. And in that space, everything can change. And now, you breathe, and the whole world breathes with you.